Hey guys, I am back again with another deck profile, this time for one of my favorite decks, Prison. Now, Prison hasn't gotten a lot of support lately, but now we have gotten two new promos that definitely give a little bit of a power boost. So first up here we have our right line. I'm guessing most of you will already know about it. The grade 1 searches your prison, the grade 2 imprisons something from hand, and the grade 3 gets power and triple drive and can imprison 2 rear guards. I'm not gonna linger too much on those. Then of course we have the prison itself, which will soul charge 3 when you play it. Then we have our grade 4, Seraph Purelight. As you might remember, on place it can imprison 2 cards from your opponent's hand, soul, and field, and it gives your entire front row a power boost for every 2 cards in the prison. Starting from 10 cards in prison, your entire front row gets a critical trigger. As you might see, I'm not running 4 of them, because with the new promo, it's not that necessary. You can get her very consistently throughout the game. Talking about the promo, this is it. Security Upgrader. So this is a very, very good promo. It's only active if you haven't ridden this turn, so it doesn't matter if you're going first or second, you have to wait until your 4th turn to use it still. But you can retire it to search your Seraph Purelight from either hand, drop zone, or your deck and superior ride it. After you superior ride it, your opponent is forced to imprison something from their drop zone, and it decreases the counterblast cost from your Seraph Purelight. So all in all, this card does a lot of stuff. It already gives you a free imprison and makes sure that you can consistently ride Purelight and that you can consistently rewrite Purelight, because it's not restricted to grade 3. You can also still keep using it when you're on grade 4. Then we have our other new promo, Blitzstaff Muna. This card is amazing because anytime something is called out of your prison, once per turn, you can pay a Soul Blast to draw a card. And honestly, this really deters your opponent from calling their stuff back because they're not willing to give you the cards most of the time. The other amazing part about this card is as long as you have 3 cards in your order zone, it gets 5,000 power and resist. As you heard, I said order zone, not prison. That means your prison itself counts already towards one of the 3 cards needed for the resist. So you just need 2 cards in your prison, basically, to get +5 and resist. Next, we have Penetrate Aquas. She is actually kind of the win condition of your deck. On place, she forces your opponent to imprison something from their drop zone, and as long as your opponent has 2 cards in prison, she gets +5,000 power and +10,000 shield. But your opponent is also forced to guard with 2 cards against her attacks, as long as that's the case. So she's a very nice all-rounder. She gets an easy imprison, she gets a nice power boost, and she has defensive capabilities. And during your Purelight turn, when everything is powered up with criticals, the guard restriction is absolutely lethal, especially if you have 2 of them on the field. Then next, we have another easy imprisonment card, Cuff Spring. This card has always been very popular in the prison deck, and it remains kind of a staple most of the time. Forces your opponent to imprison something from their hand and then draw a card. You may not want to let your opponent cycle, but honestly, this is one of the best cards to fill up your prison and make sure that all of your skills are active. Next, we have another easy imprisonment card, Accuse Macarite. When she's played, she can pay a Soul Blast to imprison the top card of your opponent's deck, and let me tell you, there is nothing funnier than imprisoning your opponent's overtrigger from the top of their deck. I have done that before, and the pain on their face is worth it. Furthermore, with her on-place ability, if you do it and then you have 2 cards at least in the prison, she also gets a 1 turn +5. So this is another easy imprisonment card. Because the new promo Muna uses Soul Blast, I've chosen to run her only at 3 because the Soul Blast is more important for the draw than for the easy prison. We have our favorite new card, at least mine at least. This is Rifle Loyas. First off the bat, during your turn, she's gonna get +5,000 power as long as you have 2 things in the prison. So she can easily attack on her own, but the best part about her, if you've imprisoned one of your opponent's cards this turn, you can pay a counterblast to imprison another card from their field, and then you get to check the top 5 and call something from among them. This is amazing to call out your 2 new promos, or to just call out an easy imprisonment card, or call out Penetrate Aquos if you want to finish the game. She's also a really nice deck filterer, and because you don't use that much counterblast during your game, she has amazing value in this deck. Next, because the format upgraded to a 50 card deck, I chose to add some defensive power to the deck. So for that, I chose the old classic Agua Rouge because she still has an imprisonment skill if your opponent chooses to leave a bit of field behind, but mostly for her plus 10k shield as long as you have 2 cards in the prison. This can come in really clutch because prison usually struggles a little bit with their defense. For PGs, I'm choosing to run 7 critical triggers and 4 draw triggers. Now, the idea of this deck is that you go in hard from the beginning of the game and try to rush your opponent to death as soon as possible and overwhelm them. So that's why I chose to go for a few more draws, because your hand ends up a little bit empty after your first few turns, so those draw triggers help to balance you out a little bit. And next, of course, we have our 4 heals and our Brandgate over trigger. I don't think I need to explain why you still want to run the Brandgate over trigger. Alright, and now to show you some Prison combos. So like I said, Prison wants to be a rushdown deck right now. So on your turn 2, you are going to try and make most of your plays. As you see, the field is already set up. You have your Prison, you have done your soul charges. So now we stand and draw. The most amazing part about the new promo means that you can discard your Purelights now for right deck, because you can also superiorize from the drop zone. So you don't mind doing this. And then going to Rise at Pink, which will imprison 1 from your opponent's hand. Something got imprisoned from your opponent, so that means Lifeful Royas is active. You can do her Counterblast and call something from the top 5. Imagine that I shuffled. You can always have multiple targets for Lifeful Royas, but in this case, let's say you found a Cuff Spring. Cuff Spring is gonna imprison something from the opponent's hand and let them draw.
This is set up for me, so let's hope it's good.
After that, you can use an Accused Macarite if you have one in hand, and pay a Soul Blast to imprison the top card of their deck.
Oh god, no!
And this is the point in the game where your opponent starts crying. Because you already have 3 cards in prison, Macarite gets +5 from that. Then if you have a Muna in hand, you definitely call it, because now your opponent is going to think twice about calling their cards back from your prison. And we are facing Seana at the moment, and as far as I know, they do not have back row interference, so you can just call out your security upgrader, because there's little chance that they can get rid of it. And just like that, you have an insanely powerful field, especially if your opponent is on grade 1. So you have an 18k Vanguard swing. It's not likely that they're gonna guard that, and if they guard it, it's probably not safe. Lifeful Royas gets +5 because you have 2 cards in prison at least. So this is a 23k swing against an 8k Vanguard. They're also most likely not gonna guard that because this is still the grade 2 turn. So if they run any 20k front triggers, they will not be active yet. And then you have a 28k swing because both of these units also get +5. Which means your opponent is probably also not gonna guard this.
Silver lining, you will be binding those units thanks to Sienna's skill. But on the other hand, this is gonna hurt.
As I said earlier in the video, right now you only have like 1 card left in hand because you committed to full field already, but these 2 units can be used for an intercept after this turn because they're no longer of use, and these 2 can attack on their own as long as they keep their power. And if your opponent chooses to call from your prison, Muna is going to give you an extra draw, and we also still have our drive check left for this turn. So let's see how this goes. That's an 18k swing.
I'm gonna hope for a defensive.
That's a drive check, and that's a draw. So that already fills out your handle a little bit more nicely.
That's a crit.
Now, your opponent checked a defensive, but let's say you added the power to Accused Macarite, that is still gonna make some painful numbers, because this is 23 on an 18k unit, which means they would have to throw a draw trigger with extra shield if they want to guard this successfully. Or overguard.
Yeah.
So this is still very annoying for your opponents.
In this scenario, I'll choose to guard it.
Then we swing with the 38k column, which is too big even with your opponent's defensive.
Yeah, I won't be guarding that one. Luckily it's a draw trigger, so I at least stabilize a little bit. And now you get the choice if you want to bind it.
Sure, I'll bind it because it's not that useful anymore for my next turn anyway. Now what usually happens is your opponents get very, very scared. So they will probably not call out of their prison because they don't want to give you more draw and potentially more aggressive power for next turn. So that means that you'll usually already be set for your triple drive next turn. Or something else that usually happens, they get absolutely terrified and start swinging into your rear guards because they don't want to give you the counterblast to imprison something else. Joke's on them, that still works out for you, because like I said, we don't need these anymore, and next turn you can just move these to the front row, and both of them usually get +5. So even if you're damage denied, you're still going to be hitting your opponents, and it still buys you a little bit of time for your grade 4 turn to use your security upgrader. Alright, so now we are in our grade 3 turn. We're picking up a little bit where we left off, so in this situation, my opponent has decided to call 2 cards back from their prison, which means we got value from Muna, she let me draw one, and because I'm facing Sienna, he also made me bounce one of my rear cards, so we are back to 5 cards in hand right now with our draw for turn.
You already discarded and rode up, so that was your draw for turn, I believe?
We already discarded for the right deck, so now what we can do, because in this scenario, your cuff spring got bounced, you can reuse it. Your opponent is forced to prison something from their hand again in return for a draw.
In this case, I'll be putting up my grade 2.
Okay. Which means that Life Royas is active again. So I can use her counterblast. This time my opponent has a field, so I can imprison one of his rear guards. I'm gonna choose the back one. Because in prison you always have to consider the possibility that you might want to damage deny if you want to make sure that you're safe for an extra turn and your opponent can't call anything from prison. So in this scenario you can still attack the rear guard if you feel it might be a possibility.
We're just gonna cut in for a second. Cuff spring allows me to draw, right?
Yeah.
I need to draw still.
Next, Life Royas isn't finished yet. You get to check your top 5. And lucky me, that is a Penetrate Aquos. Very nice card to get in this case. You shuffle the deck a little bit. Penetrate Aquos activates on place. Opponent is forced to imprison something from their drop zone.
That would be Striga.
There we go. And as you can see, we have 4 cards in prison right now. As you see, it's not that hard to keep your prison going in the list that I have built. Right now, the 4 of my 6 units are getting power-ups, and I have my triple drive active. Of course, because you're Brand Gate, you will be swinging with your Vanguard first.
I don't like that you're swinging with your Vanguard first. You have +1 drive or triple drive?
+1. It's not triple yet.
That's not nice.
So for those wondering at home, this right now is a 31k swing with triple drive on it. Again, very hard to guard in the early game for your opponents.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to no guard.
First check, and that is a critical trigger. Like I said, Rifle Royas is a very nice filterer. In this case, you definitely put your crit on your Vanguard, and you put your power on your Penetrate Aquos, because she does have her guard restricts already active. Second check, there you go, that's your Augur Rouge. So right now that's 2 15k shields going to hand, and another Cuff Spring that you can use next turn.
Let's see if we see one of those heals. Nope.
Then you're gonna swing with a 23k column.
So since we got pushed, we're not gonna go for the Sienna fun time, so we're actually gonna guard this one for 25.
And then we are going to go. So both of these units got +5,000, and a trigger was added to that power. So they shall be 41, and your opponent has to use 2 cards to guard.
So I don't like all this pressure, so sadly I'm gonna have to use my Elementaria Sanctitude in this situation, discarding another one of my draw triggers.
a very nice little tidbit to know is a lot of people are going to misplay using the Elementaria Sanctitude against your deck. Because this is a grade 4 deck, so you would think that it's gonna play in their advantage. But most people think that you have to use it to guard the Vanguard, and don't think this might be useful to use against Penetrate Aquas because it circumvents the guard restraints.
Yep, especially once you're on your Purelight.
Yep.
And it's just removing the Sanctitude itself without the discard.
Exactly.
But the pressure right now was a bit too much.
So like you're seeing, your opponent is very much struggling, and with your triple drive, your draw trigger, you are back to a pretty healthy hand right now.
The plus side also right now, we can offer our opponent to remove the Penetrate Aqua since we use Elementaria Sanctitude.
Alright, in that case, I shall be discarding one card from my hand. Alright, so we are now into our spicy turn 4 play. As you see, my opponent... Can they see?
They can see.
Okay.
They should be able to see. Let's make
I
sure
wasn't sure
they
for a
can
second.
see.
Oh, toon misschien zo een keer uw lege soul.
My soul is empty.
As you see, my opponent has predicted that I would use Purelight and use the cards from his soul against him by putting them in prison. So he purposely left the soul empty and left a full field. What he didn't realize is now with the new promo, you can still use your Seraph Snow before you go into Seraph Purelight. So, for example, I'm now going to use Seraph Snow to imprison his 2 back row grade 1s.
No, my perfect plan.
And after that, you can use your Security Upgrader and Superior Ride a Purelight from your deck.
We still don't shuffle for the sake of speeding this up.
And Security Upgrader also forces the opponent to imprison 1 from your drop zone, and then decreases the cost of your Purelight by 1 counterblast. Seraph Purelight's on-play skill, Soul Blast another Purelight, and now my opponent is forced to imprison 2 from his field, hand, and soul. His soul is empty, but he can still do the other ones.
In this case, I'll try to hope and survive. Therefore, we're gonna take units that are more advantageous for that end. So we take these, and we take it like this. So we still have 6 cards in hand.
And by now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards in prison that easily.
I do not like this.
But we're still not done, because now you can also use your Life Royas to take that last card from his field and call from your top 5.
10 in prison. Does that mean everything gets crits?
Yep, it does. Now something very funny, you can call Life Royas with Life Royas. For this sake, I am gonna do a little bit of a shuffle.
What? No.
Which means you can do it again. Your opponent may not have cards in prison, but you get another card on your field. And we got exactly what we wanted. Your finisher.
We are in trouble.
Because you placed another Penetrate Aquas, the opponent has to imprison something from their drop zone again.
We'll try and keep our right deck cards in our drop zone.
Which means now we are at 11. And then you call another one, which forces them to do it again.
This is becoming quite annoying.
Now you are at 12 cards in prison, which means your front row is getting plus 30k power and crits. On top of the fact that all of these single rear guards get plus 5 from themselves as well. And of course, because you're grade 4, you have triple drive naturally. So let's see how the opponent is going to react.
Sadly, since we got pressured last turn, we had to give up a bit of that awesome potential. Therefore, we do not have our Elementaria Sanctitude, so we're gonna use a basic Perfect Guard. We're sadly gonna have to discard our Sienna, just for the sake of hoping to survive.
Then we triple drive. First check, second check, critical trigger. We're gonna put all of the effects on one of the Penetrate Aquas, and then we get a heal trigger. We are at 4, so we do heal. We're gonna put all of that power on the same Penetrate Aquas, because now she is swinging for lethal with guard restricts.
No, yeah, she has a crit. Oh no. Oh no.
Alright, she is 18k on herself with the triggers and with Purelight. She becomes 68k by herself, plus a 13k boost, which means she's by now an 81k triple crit with guard restricts.
Hey now, this is not very nice. I'm thinking, this is... How much?
Your opponents are gonna say that a lot during this turn. This is 81k.
81k, hey, look, if I want to survive, I'm gonna have to take this one, so let's hope we get that heal trigger. A crit, so we give the power. No, okay. Well, we healed once. That's something. To let you guys know, we had our triggers to use the soul skill, but this power ramping was just way too much. So yeah, that's Prison.
As you can see, this is a very aggressive deck, and it can really catch some opponents off guard because they're really not expecting to see Prison anymore, which is your greatest advantage. So guys, if you have any other questions, these are all the combos that I found worth it to share. Of course, there's more. If you have any questions about the units that I used or why I chose certain things over others, let me know in the comments. And if any of you are waiting for a Sienna deck list, that might be in the works very, very soon. Bye guys!